All right, guys, I'm going to show you how to draw your roof and wall detail or sectional. And first off, before you do that, make sure you got borders all the way around your paper, like I've got on mine. You can't really see on mine because it doesn't all fit in the camera. And of course, make sure that your data section down here, your data block, this line is 2 inches from this border, from the right border, 2 inches drawn all the way through. Then of course you've got this line right here to set off your data block, and that is 3 inches from the bottom border up to here. All right, and then each one of these cells are 1/4 of an inch. Your text, each cell is 1/2 of an inch. Your text within the cell is 1/4 of an inch tall, and that text is kind of placed in the middle. It's not placed on the line itself. Okay, so place your text in the middle of those cells. And what I want to do is pick a spot on my page to start drawing my details. And because this is going to be a roof and wall detail, I'm going to have my wall about right here, and I'm going to have some extra structure over here on this side. So I need to make sure I pick a spot that's going to leave enough room over here. So I'm not going to go in the middle, but I'm going to go closer to the middle than I typically go. And somewhere toward the bottom, and I'm just going to draw an indiscriminately lengthed line. There's no length to that. Okay, just leave up some space up here because you're going to have a roof that's going to go up there. Draw that first line. Now this represents one side of that stud, that wall stud, which is made of a 2x4, which that 2x4 is 3.5 inches thick. That's the thickness that I'm concerned about at this moment. So find 3.5 inches. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to put some top plates, double top plates, on top of this wall stud. So I'm just going to find a spot. I think I'm going to come down just a little bit. I'm going to erase some of those lines up there. I like to move it. I like to move it. Okay, that's over. Okay, so just find a little spot there to make the top of your stud. Then what you're going to do is you're going to measure. Here it is. You're going to measure the thickness of these top plates. Okay, now the dimension we're interested in here is the 1.5 inch dimension, because those top plates will be laid flat over the top of these studs. Okay, so I want to go to, let's say here's 1. Is that right? Okay, 1.5 here, and then another 1.5 up here. Okay, so those are my top plates. The X marks the cut end of those timbers. And after I do that, of course, this is going to be the very top of my wall right here. After I do that, I'm going to draw mark a ceiling joist going across here, and ceiling joist will extend horizontally, and it will be using a 2x6. So what I want to do is measure, again, using my 3-inch scale. I want to mark for a 2x6, which a 2x6 isn't really 2 inches by 6 inches. It is really 1.5 inches by 5.5 inches, and the 5.5 inch is what I'm interested in here. So there's 3, 4, 5.5. So I will draw the bottom of that joist right through here, and not really any particular length there, and then I'm going to do that. Okay, all right, so that is your wall right here, your top plates, your joist. All this is wood. Okay, none of it's concrete. It's all wood. And let's see, the next thing I want to do is establish my roof slope. A roof slope is basically the angle for which the roof goes up to basically help shed water off of the building. And there's actually going to be an overhang. It's going to overhang this way. It's going to overhang about 1 foot from the wall itself. But of course, I don't have the wall materials in here so that I can measure that. So the first thing I'm going to do is indicate, or at least find out how far out my wall materials are going to come So I am going to measure for my sheathing, my plywood sheathing that's going to go on the exterior of the wall. And by the way, again, this is called a core. The wall core is the studs that support the wall. And this is maybe new to you, but these lines out to the side, that's considered the core boundary. Okay, so outside the exterior core boundary, I'm going to measure 3/4 of an inch for my plywood, okay, my sheathing. And then from that mark, I'm going to measure 1 inch for my airspace. Airspace is something we use when we're using masonry construction or masonry finish on the exterior. And that's to allow for moisture drainage, because the bricks and the block and things like that, they will condensate. And of course, then you'll get water, and you don't want to create a mold situation inside your wall. So we leave a little bit of airspace for circulation and to allow that moisture to drip out the bottom of the wall. All right. And then next, I'm going to measure the distance for my bricks. I'm going to use 4-inch bricks. So right there. All right. Now I want to measure 1 foot from there, and that's going to be my overhang. So to mark my overhang, I'm going to just draw a light line, and that's going to be the extent of my overhang. Okay, now your rafters are going to come at an angle, and they're going to come actually through your top plates. Okay, so we have to set this up to where first we got to find that angle. Okay, and that angle is measured with what we call in the industry rise over run, which is a slope measurement. Rise meaning how far it's going to rise, run over a horizontal run. Okay, to make that more understandable, again, we're using 3-inch scale. I'm going to come to the outside of my wall, and I'm going to take it to about, and I might not be right, but I'm going to take it about right there on the between the top plates, and I'm going to measure 12 inches. And I'm going to place a mark at 12 inches. That is your run. That is your horizontal run. So 12-inch run. The rise above that run will be 6 inches. Okay, so we will line that little mark up on 6 and then mark that as our rise. So we got a 6-inch rise over a 12-inch run. And that basically establishes the angle. Now remember, I used this spot right here to start my measurement. So that's where I'm going to make my angle at. Okay, so it's kind of going through, right through that double top plate. Okay, all right, and that actually was perfect. That, let's see, I don't think we would want it to sit down any deeper than that. That's good right there. Now, again, this is going to be a 2x6 for the rafter, so I'm going to measure 5.5 inches, and I'm going to keep my scale, my ruler, at an angle equivalent to the angle of the roof, so that I will get an accurate measurement. Okay, if you do it like this, you may come off a little different. See, if I do it like this, I actually measure 6 inches. I wouldn't want to do that. If I did a 5.5, then of course it would be too short. So keep it at an angle so that you get an accurate measurement at 5.5 inches. And actually I would do 2 of them so that you can keep a straight line as well. So there's another mark at 5.5 inches. Okay, I'm going to line both of those marks up on my straight edge and draw. Okay, now what happens with the rest of this stuff? Well, this little piece of the joist gets cut off. Okay, and it gets cut off flush with the rafter. And now the joist is actually going behind the rafter in this view. So I'm going to kind of redo this part of the line of the rafter. And what I'm going to do is make these hidden lines. Okay, they're going to be dashed lines to represent that is the joist going behind the rafter in this situation. Okay, so now I have a joist that goes behind that rafter. Okay, now I'm going to finish out my materials on the exterior side of the core boundary. So this one is my plywood. This marks the boundary of my airspace. This marks the boundary of my bricks. Okay. And of course, we don't really cut an angle on those pieces to match with the rafter. We just go ahead and just run them up, straight up, and then stop. Okay. All right. And now for the other, make these 3-inch, they're 4-inch by 3-inch bricks, but just indicate that they're bricks just like so. And we will also take this line and remove this line because the bricks will stop right there. Next thing we'll do is our drywall. Okay, drywall, we're going to use 1.5-inch thick drywall. And really sometimes on the ceilings, or actually a lot of times on the ceilings, you're going to use a thicker drywall, anywhere from 5/8 to 3/4. So if I'm using 5/8, I'm really not going to worry too much about representing 5/8 of an inch up on the ceiling. I will just annotate it over here to the side. But the wall is going to be 1/2-inch drywall. And the difference between 5/8 and 1/2 inch is just negligible when you're in 3-inch scale. So I'm going to just mark 1/2 inch here. And then 1/2 inch right there. This ceiling drywall needs to go all the way to the top plates. Okay, so that one needs to get drawn first. Okay, and I think I may have measured that too big. Let me double check. I did. I measured a whole inch. My bad. So undo that. Okay, all better. Oh yeah, that line should still be there. And go ahead and start dotting the drywall so that you don't get it confused with any other part of the structure. So there, I'm dotting my drywall. Okay, but go ahead and do all of that drywall, and also your plywood. You're going to have, draw these little X shapes, zigzags or whatever, through your plywood. Just to indicate that that's what that is. And then, of course, there'll be a vertical line right through that. Okay, so now this is basically the wall, how the wall meets the roof. The roof actually has more material on it up here. It's going to have also a 3/4 inch sheathing, which a lot of times they call it decking because it's more of a horizontal position. So it's also 3/4 of an inch. So we'll measure that out, and I'm going to place 2 dots so I can keep the integrity of a straight line, I think. Okay, so just line those 2 dots up and then draw your plywood. And then again, you'll want to X all this out as well to represent your plywood. Okay, so we'll continue doing that all the way up till we get all the way to the top. Okay, next is going to be, of course, there's going to be a vapor retarder or a tar paper that's going to be on top of this decking. And on top of that sheath or that vapor barrier is going to be the shingles. Okay, so we don't really indicate the vapor barrier other than just saying that it's there. The same with right here, we have a vapor barrier right there as well. But we do indicate that it's there, but there's no way to draw it because it is paper thin. What I am going to draw, however, are my shingles. And the shingles can be stylized to make them look like real shingles or not. What I'm going to do is just going to mark off 1/2 inch spot there. And I'm not going to stylize these, and I don't want you to waste time stylizing them yourself. But you can draw what looks like shingles up here. What we're going to do is we're just going to draw the space for the shingles, and we're going to take a shading pencil if you have one. If not, just use whatever you got, and we're just going to shade all that in. It's going to be black to represent the shingles. Okay, now instead of having you watch me shade all that in, just go ahead and take all that up to the top. Now what I'm going to do down here too is I'm going to bring these down a little bit, because the shingles will kind of overlap your fascia and your eave and stuff there, so it'll kind of overhang just a little bit. All right, now underneath of this is going to be what we call a drip edge, but I'm not ready to put the drip edge yet because I need to put what's called the fascia onto the drawing. I want to measure a 1/2 inch. Now the fascia is basically a board that covers the rafters, the bare rafters. You don't want to see exposed wood necessarily. Sometimes that is style. Okay, but that comes down like so. And probably, there we go. And this is what we call it. The material it's made out of is it's wood, but we just call it Soffit Board, which is basically a particle board that is used, that is made of like sawdust, and it's all pressed and glued together very tightly under intense pressure and heat. Okay, and so that would be the fascia. That's going to cover those exposed rafters, and it's going to keep weather from blowing up inside, up under the roof. So look at your house when you get home, and you can kind of see some of these things on your own roof. You know, you'll see the overhang portion here, which we call an eave. You're going to see the fascia, which is kind of on the end of the eave, and then of course the next one, there's going to be another little piece of board here. I'm going to measure 1/2 inch. And this is called the soffit. Okay, this the board that we use, we actually call it Soffit Board, because it's the same thing typically we're going to make the fascia out of, and then we're going to make this soffit piece here. So this is the soffit, this is the fascia. All this together is called the eave. All right, so instead of watching me do that, I'm going to leave it just like that and let you continue hatching that in. The next thing we have to have some framing for our soffit. And the frame, there's many different ways of framing that, just as well there is with anything else. But I'm just going to draw one to kind of show you what it looks like, and I want you to draw it too. But you're going to measure 3.5 inches over this way, because you're going to use 2x4s. So measure 3.5 inches from the wall, and then you're going to measure 1.5 inches up. Okay, so that is the kind of the bottom part of the framing. Up here, you've got kind of like a wall stud that will extend up. Okay, and then behind the rafter, you'll dash the lines, because this is going to be hidden lines. Same right over here. So where that 2x4 extends right on up. It may not go all the way up. It may stop in here somewhere, and they would probably just nail it off right along in there. And then you've also got this bottom piece that will extend and give you, and we need to also do some hidden lines on that one. Okay, so there. And that will be the bottom piece of that. So essentially that is your roof and wall intersection, and it will get labeled. I will show you the final view with everything labeled on it, but I'm not going to do it here. And just remember, when you're labeling all those lines, they have to be straight. All your text lines have to be straight. All the letters are capital, and they're all 1/8 of an inch tall. Everything needs to be aligned vertically and horizontally, as best you possibly can. And you'll see mine when I'm done. You'll kind of see what that looks like.